Good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are watching us or listening to us from. We are excited to be with you this very morning, afternoon, and evening. My name is Emmanuel Frimpong. I am the president of Africa Tourism Research Network and a trainer of trainers for meaningful tourism. I'm located in Accra, Ghana, and I'm privileged to be moderating this important summit, which is basically to get Africans to appreciate meaningful tourism and also to see how we can adopt the concept of meaningful tourism to be able to promote sustainable tourism in Africa. So I'll be giving you a bit background of why we think it is so important to have this summit. But let me use this opportunity to thank all my colleagues who have helped to put this summit or webinar together, especially to Institute of Tourism, led by Dr. Reza, who has been so helpful in putting this together. And of course, the brain behind Meaningful Tourism, Professor Wolfgang. He is the initiator, the visionary for this all-important subject that we are looking at. It is important for Africa because if you look at over-tourism that is taking place in most of European countries and even in some American and Asia countries, the next destination, which we have seen a tremendous increase in tourist arrivals in Africa, is definitely going to be Africa. So therefore, Africa must look at how we allow people to come in and also make sure that we balance it so that we don't experience. We can also learn from what Europe is experiencing now over tourism. We don't have to get there because most African countries don't have the infrastructure to be able to cope with over tourism. Therefore, there is the need for Africa to begin to look at how best can we look at tourism so that everyone that is involved in the tourism value chain benefits, including the environment. Climate change is a big issue, a global issue for everyone. Therefore, Africa must and should not allow over-tourism to take place in Africa. That is the essence of putting this summit or webinar together. And we have ministers around. We also have government policymakers, we have academia, we have industry, we have almost everybody here that has something to do with tourism. So we are here to contribute our knowledge, our experiences together. And I'm happy to have a number of speakers at the right time. I'll introduce all of them who will be sharing their experiences and also be giving us insight into why they think meaningful tourism is essential for sustainable travel and tourism in Africa. So, honorable colleagues, this morning, this afternoon, this evening, we are here to explore how Africa can develop its potential tourism by way of using meaningful tourism. So we have somebody that will be sharing with us what meaningful tourism is all about, because we need to have that background understanding of meaningful tourism. But before I do that, permit me to introduce some of our trainer of trainers who are basically all in Africa. For some strange reasons, I think Africa is the only continent with a lot of trainers at this point. I stand to be corrected, but it seems we have the largest group, and that's exciting. So I'll be calling on them from about 7 different countries in 2 minutes to share with us their experience of being trained as trainer of trainers. So, but before then, I have a video of one of us who is in flight at the moment. She's traveling, she's in the plane. So she did us favor by recording for us to play what she has to say. So please allow me to get her video so that we can quickly listen to her. Just a moment. Okay, I think this is what I'll do. I'll get her video on, but before then, let me get a few of them to share. So Namibia, rep from Namibia, if you are here, please introduce yourself. Trainer of trainers from Namibia, if you are here, please introduce yourself and in 2 minutes, share something with us.
Hello, yes, I am here. So my name is Florian, and I'm very honored to represent my two countries of my heart. I'm based in Austria, where I was born and raised, but Namibia has become my second home over many years, and I'm very happy to also see myself as a builder of bridges between our continents and to share knowledge. I think Austria is doing a pretty good job in handling over tourism. Namibia is very famous for its community-based conservation efforts. So I think our two places can learn a lot from each other. So a little bit of my background. I'm originally have a background in law and ESG management. I've worked in sustainable finance, but I also have some internationally recognized certification in sustainable tourism. So what I try to do is to bring to our group of diverse experts in our meaningful tourism community a very broad background. So to combine all the different aspects of sustainability from taking action to reporting, which is also a very big topic currently in the world. So yeah, I try to bring in my diverse background and to bring our two continents closer together. And I'm very happy to be here today. It's an honor. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for that insightful introduction there. So thank you. We are grateful. We look forward to working with you, and your diverse background would definitely bring a lot to the table. So can we move to South Africa? South Africa, if you are here.
Yes, indeed, I'm here, Emmanuel, and thank you for the opportunity and greetings to everyone, wherever you are in the world from the warm southern tip of Africa. My name is Septi Pukula. I am the founder of Renzo Network Africa. It is a network of travel and tourism SMEs across the continent. It is a collaborative commercial network with its main base being in South Africa. Before I got involved in tourism, and Renzo Network is involved in two areas in tourism. One is MICE, where we host a number of inbound business events in South Africa. So we bring a lot of visitors from around the world into the destination. And please, if you haven't been to South Africa, you're invited to come and visit us in this beautiful destination. So that's one part of our business. The other part is we do destination development. And that is where both of these is where meaningful tourism becomes quite exciting to us. In destination development, we partner with different players in government and in the private sector to do what we call tourism cluster development. My professional background is in community economic development. I spent more than 25 years in that field, including entrepreneurship and small business development. So communities, entrepreneurship, and small business development. I've always been about the inclusion of communities and the inclusion of SMEs, both economically broadly, but now because we're in tourism, certainly in tourism, and that being an important element of sustainability. But what I like about meaningful tourism, which I think for me is a really unique contribution, is in fact in two parts. The one part is where it broadens, the stakeholders and sees everybody, the six stakeholders, players who are involved in meaningful tourism, all the way from governments, including employees, very crucially, SMEs, and various stakeholders, the environment, private sector operators, educators, and all of those. I think that's crucial. But I finish with this, Emmanuel. One of the things that I really stand for is this thing of standing against this seeing of communities and SMEs alone as beneficiaries from tourism. There's this label that is developed that communities and SMEs are beneficiaries. Everybody is a beneficiary, right? If you make money out of tourism, you run business, you're a beneficiary. And that's how we look at it. And we really want to demystify this thing of only SMEs and communities as beneficiaries, because that brings with it some kind of thinking that it's almost be doing them a favor by including them in the conversation. No, we're not. They are the backbone of tourism. Without SMEs and communities, there'll be very little tourism. So thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, my brother. We are grateful to you for the contribution that you are making. Malawi, if you are here, rep from Malawi, trainer of trainers, Malawi, if you are here. Okay, we will come back to Malawi. Malawi, are you here? Okay, can we go to...
He was here before, Samuel. He was here before.
Okay, we will come back to Malawi. Yes, okay, right. Can we move to Zimbabwe? Zimbabwe, if you are here. Okay, we will come back to Malawi and Zimbabwe. Do we have somebody from Ghana? Ghana? No?
Hey, Mario, that's you. That's you. You are from Ghana.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see. Wow. So Ghana is already here. Wow. Thank you. So I think I have to work more to get a lot more Ghanaians to become trainer of trainers. So do we have Madagascar? Madagascar?
Hello. I'm here.
Hi. Oh, beautiful.
Hi, Emmanuel.
Sonja.
Yeah,
Hi,
it's Sonia. Nice meeting all of you. So I'm Sonia from the big island in the Indian Ocean. Maybe I'm pretty sure that I'm the only French-speaking trainer now for Meaningful. And well, let's say of course I don't. Do you still hear me, Emmanuel? Because you disappeared.
Yes, we hear you. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. So I'm living. I grew up in Madagascar for my lifetime, and my background is private sector entrepreneurship. Oh, you speak too French, okay, Christelle? So Christelle Kessler. Well, we're some Germans all over Africa, a bit all over the continent, let's say. And I was working in tourism as a guide, tour operator, and building different eco-lodges for 3 decades. And actually, I work as a consultant in sustainable tourism training, mostly for the GSTC, and doing some coaching and auditing for Green Globe and Travel Life. But also I'm also involved very much in Madagascar itself, because it's now my home country. And I just got my Meaningful training for trainer yesterday, so it's brand new. I cannot really talk about any experience since yesterday. But let's say after my long career on the field, I'm still hope that we will be able to give more meaning to what we're doing, right, in tourism. Because when you get white hair, you're looking for a purpose to work on in a better, let's say, in a purposeful way. And that's what I'm looking forward, and very happy to be part of the community, and also to represent the Indian Ocean somehow, because it's a huge region, but we have several islands. So I'm looking forward to be a meaningful trainer for Madagascar, but also Mauritius, Reunion, maybe Seychelles or the Comoro Islands. This is my neighborhood. So I'm very happy to join the community, and I'm looking forward to listen to this webinar.
Wow, thank you so much, Sonia. Thank you. We are grateful to you. So you represent about 3 or so countries. That's good. Well done. Well done. Well done. Well done. Well, so I mentioned that we have somebody that has the ability, capacity, and the tools to be able to tell us what meaningful tourism is all about. And why did he even conceive that idea? Because a lot of people misunderstand the meaningful tourism as against sustainable tourism. So he is the right person to tell us what exactly is meaningful tourism and what is the difference between meaningful tourism and sustainable tourism. We have with us here the convener of meaningful tourism, a professor of tourism that has trained hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of students in the field of tourism. He is still in the business of teaching, educating, and helping people in tourism, government, and all manner of ideas that he's bringing together to make sure that tourism become meaningful. He is the executive director of Meaningful Tourism Center. And we have with us Professor Dr. Wolfgang, who will be helping us to understand meaningful tourism and what he envisaged for it to do in the next few years. So, Prof, if you can hear me, as I assume you can, because I can see you. So please take us through what you want us to learn about meaningful tourism, and why do you even want to bring meaningful tourism at this point in the life of the tourism sector. So over to you, Prof.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel. And I hope you can see my slides. So I don't want to take up.
Yes, we can see.
Okay, very good. I don't want to take up too much of your time, because we have 5 wonderful speakers from different parts of Africa, and of course they are much more able to me than to speak about the situation in Africa. But just to set the scene, a brief introduction into what is meaningful tourism, and especially what does it mean for Africa. So as Emmanuel already mentioned, of course, we can see that Africa is the youngest continent in the world, and has a lot of potential. But we also see that in the past 50 years, conventional tourism models have often failed to give value for all stakeholders. So we have cruise ships where the local communities have very little effect, and we have all-inclusive beach resorts where most of the money goes back to America or Spain, or where the investors are coming from. But we also see that fortunately more and more of the travelers are interested in sustainable experiences and in transformational experiences, and really going close and being part of the places they are visiting, and coming back a changed person. And so this is a big opportunity for Africa, and also because in many ways Africa is a bit late in starting, so you can avoid hopefully a lot of the mistakes other people have been doing. So meaningful tourism is basically a very simple idea. It says that so to have everybody happy, everybody has to be happy. So in your family, the husband, the wife, the kids, the mother-in-law, the neighbors, everybody has to be happy. Otherwise, if somebody is not happy, then the whole atmosphere will be destroyed. And it's the same also in tourism. And we said there are 6 stakeholders, I will tell in a minute, and all of them need two things. One is objective benefits, so which is jobs, income, local development, and careful usage of the environment and so on, but also satisfaction. So tourism is not only a rational thing, it is also a emotional thing, maybe even a spiritual thing for many people. So you need objective benefits and subjective benefiction. And of course, we are doing all this, and in the coming years, even more so, in the face of climate change, bringing a lot of business models to an end and changing a lot of things. And of course, also technological development. So we are living obviously in a fast changing world. And so we have to adapt, and we have to transform also what we are offering. So what are the six stakeholders? Very easy. The visitors, or for hotels, the guests, the host communities, the employees, and Emmanuel already said, very often in discussions about sustainability, the employees are overlooked. The companies themselves, which have to make money to survive and to be able to invest and to grow. The government, which can use tourism not only for tax income, but also to help regional development and empower people, especially empowering young people, empowering women. And of course, the environment, where we have to be as careful as possible, because, well, in nature tourism especially, we are selling nature. That is our product. If we destroy it, there's nothing left to sell. So the key point to say is that meaningful tourism is a holistic approach where you can see we try to cover all different parts. And Septi already mentioned that. And the other half of the story is that we are working with KPIs, key performance indicators. So we are saying what you want to manage, you have to be able to measure. And we don't talk about in 2060 we will be carbon free or something. That is what politicians are saying. So we say, okay, concrete indicators you can measure, and you can see, okay, after 1 year, has the situation improved in the way we wanted it to improve. And this goes along the whole production chain, from how to build a hotel to waste management and at the end. And it is based on positive psychology. So not saying you have to be ashamed of traveling around, or you have to stop doing this and stop doing that, but to say this can be a force for good, and it can help all of us to have a better life and a physical and emotional well-being. So it's a tool. So we are not saying this is some theory, but it's supposed to be a very practical tool. And all the trainers we have almost 40 trainers now all over the world, 7 of them in Africa. So it's a tool to analyze, to mitigate, to develop a strategy, to monitor the progress, and also to do this for companies, for destinations, but also for vocational training institutions, for universities. And so also to give it transparency, that also the people at large can understand what are the effects, the good and the bad effects of tourism, so that you have a discussion where people are not just saying, oh, over tourism is bad, or flying in an aircraft is bad, but they also can see what are the benefits, but also what are the challenges you have to address to. So this is all a development of the theory came out, of course, of the over-tourism debates, and then also out of the pandemic, and out of the idea that we can't go on like that. So tourism has been growing from like 10 million travelers to 1.5 billion travelers. So we can't just go on growing like that. The Earth is not big enough for that. And also, it's not the point just to say, oh, we look at arrival numbers. We will have to look at other measures and to go from quantity to quality. And we have to find holistic solutions, not just partial solutions. Say, oh, we tax tourism and then everything will be fine. So very briefly, this is something which is a rather new idea. And so I'm very, very happy that so many people are joining us in this idea. So it basically started by the establishment of the Meaningful Tourism Center in 2021. And we have been starting to give out awards in 2022. I published some chapters about this. And since last year, the Meaningful Tourism Center is a not-for-profit organization registered in the UK but the headquarters are here in Kathmandu. I'm here together with my colleagues in Nepal. Wonderful place. If you haven't been here, come and visit us. And we started also last year the Meaningful Tourism Transformational Game workshops. I will talk about this a bit. And also we are very proud that a few months ago, PATA, the Pacific Asia Travel Association, approved as a new vision statement for the whole organization, and they're in 32 countries, that meaningful Pacific Asia tourism economy is what they are aiming at. And so we are organizing forums. The last one was in Guangzhou, and later in the year, we will have also something happening in London and in Bali and in many different places. And of course, when we talk about meaningful tourism, we are not only talking about leisure tourism, but we are also including non-leisure travel, especially now health and wellness becomes very important. And I think, again, for Africa, this is a big opportunity to show people how to live closer to nature and in contact with nature than you do if you live in Shanghai or in Rio de Janeiro or in Rome. So, and it's not something to say, oh, we are good guys, we want to help the environment or something. It is something you have to do because with climate change and with rising temperatures, rising sea levels, many places cannot continue to have beach tourism the way they had or city strolls. So you will need to embrace change what economist Mr. Schumpeter has been called creative destruction. So don't try to keep the old, but develop something new. Again, Africa as a young continent is probably more able to say, yeah, we want to try out something new than a continent like Europe. So I'm a German originally, where we are saying, oh, it worked out wonderful in the past. Why can't we keep it? And so before I was speaking, some of our trainers were saying hello to you. And so what we are offering for everybody is Meaningful Tourism Transformational Game workshops. So they are one-day workshops, and they are based on role plays, so that for one day you are taking over the role of a 55-year-old souvenir shop owner lady or of the tourism minister of a country, whatever, by chance, and you try for one day, okay, to find out what are my interests and how can we align interest with other people. So, as I said, Pacific Asia Travel Association endorsed this concept, and I want to finish with a quote of the chairman of PATA, who said, tourism must evolve from a number game to a sustainable endeavor, and meaningful tourism challenges us to redefine success, not only by spending, but how we effectively serve communities, protect our heritage, and enrich our lives. And at PATA, we believe the future of tourism lies in creating shared value, and we are proud to work in partnership with Meaningful Tourism Center with us to do this important transition across the Asia-Pacific region. So for Asia-Pacific, already this has been endorsed by the leading organization. So I think now, thank you very much, Emmanuel, and everybody supporting this webinar today. So thank you, Reza from the Institute of Tourism for doing all the technical stuff here, so that we can use this as a start also to build a meaningful African tourism economy. So that's all I want to say. So if you want to have more information, our website is called meaningfultourismcenter.org. We have a weekly newsletter, of course, free of charge. You can go to meaningfultourismweekly.ghost.io to read it. And of course, if you have any questions, talk to our trainers, contact us, and I'm sure that this will be the beginning of a very important process, and where Africa can realize all the opportunities you have in your wonderful continent. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you so much, Prof, for that explanation. We are grateful. Let me once again welcome all our viewers and listeners. We are almost everywhere. on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, everywhere. So those of you that are on a different channel and watching and listening to us, we welcome all of you. Let me also note that we chose today, June 19th, a special day for Africa, because that is the day that officially slavery was abolished several years ago. So it's a significant day in the life of every African and anyone that has Africa at heart. So we also established that at the end of the webinar, we want to achieve certain objectives. One of them is to create awareness, bring understanding of the concept of meaningful tourism among African tourism stakeholders. We also want to create that engagement where we provide platform for dialogue between policymakers, community leaders, tourism entrepreneurs, international partners. We also want to inspire, showcase successful models and case studies for meaningful tourism in Africa that is taking place already. And then fourthly, we also want to promote collaborative strategies and partnerships to implement meaningful tourism across African continent. And on that note, we are privileged to have an important personality with us. I have had an opportunity to be on the same platform with her on a few times. I've had opportunity to listen to her. I've had opportunity to read her stuff about sustainable tourism. And I've also followed her on how she is able to engage communities, the Maasai community in Kenya, and also how she's been able to train them, scale them up, retool them, and support them so that they can fully benefit from sustainable tourism, which we are looking at meaningful tourism today. And she has also advocated for the support for the Maasai community and other communities that are doing something meaningful in Kenya and beyond. So I am happy to introduce our next speaker to you. Basically, our first speaker for the speaker's point, Judy Kefagona. She is the director, Sustainable Travel and Tourism Africa, which is headquartered in Kenya, but doing wonderful job across the continent of Africa and beyond. So Judy, if you are here with us, I know throughout the week you are in some webinar and seminars, and you still made some time to be with us this morning. So if you are here and you can hear me, please take over from us. Judy will be looking at her work in the Maasai community, how she's used sustainable tourism, and how she thinks sustainable tourism and meaningful tourism are essential for community engagement and making sure communities also benefit from tourism. So Judy, if you can hear me, please, over to you.
Good afternoon, Emmanuel. Can you hear me?
Good afternoon, Judy.
Thank you. Yes, you are right. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening from everyone joining us from whatever parts of the world. I'm in Nairobi, Kenya. I'm Judy Kefagona, like Emmanuel has said, founder at Sustainable Travel and Tourism Africa. I am in between a one-week training, so I've actually taken a few minutes of the training to be able to be part of this webinar and share a little bit of my personal experience with tourism and responsible or sustainable tourism. I must admit that I am one of those still old school who prefer to use sustainable to represent anything and everything that gives in taking care of our people and achieving sustainable development. So you will bear with me if I use the terms responsible and sustainable and not much of meaningful, knowing that what is in meaningful is covered already in the terminologies that I will use this afternoon, mainly responsible and sustainable. I am sitting in a conference facility in a hotel. There's lots of people. And so you may have background noise, and my internet is not the greatest today from where I am. So you will bear with me if I will not put on my video for now. If you really want to know how I look like, go to my LinkedIn page. That's exactly how I look like in the field, the place where I like to work. Before I share my few slides that I have today, I'd like to make a few statements that for me define the traditional. We are talking here redefining Africa travel. Before we redefine, we need to know where we are at. And one statement defines African travel is that it is exclusive by nature for communities. By design, it is exclusive. And that is how it has been for many countries in Africa, that travel and tourism is exclusive. Without knowing, unintentionally or intentionally, policies have gone ahead to emphasize this exclusion, to entrench this exclusion, exclusion. Instead of seeing partnerships, we see more of patronage in the continent when it comes to tourism. We see skewed opportunities in the continent when it comes to travel. So I will share with you for about until 2013, between 2008 and 2008 and 2015, I worked directly in Masai Mara, and I worked with a group of forward-thinking individuals and organizations to really redefine tourism in Masai Mara, Kenya, which is the most visited destination in Kenya. The Maasai communities are still the most traditional, authentic communities that we have in Kenya. In fact, Masai Mara and the Great Migration is being referred to as one of the 7 wonders of the world. But the questions we were asking ourselves, is the global narrative about Masai Mara, does it reflect the situation on the ground? Does the global narrative of tourism in Masai Mara, defined by the migration, defined by the Big Five, defined by wonderful protected area, defined by these people, beautiful Maasai people whose culture everybody loves, when they see the image of a Maasai standing on one leg holding a spear, it's fascinating. The world thinks it's fascinating, but what do the local people think about their own destination? How do they relate with that same tourism that has created a narrative around them and around their land and around their resources and around their cultures and around everything else that they value, except that they are not in that narrative? They are used for the narrative, but they're not in that narrative as a community. So these are the questions that we began to ask ourselves in 2008. How can they own the narrative, tell the narrative, access the resources, be at the center of tourism in Masai Mara? I don't know whether I have the opportunity to share my screen. If I can, I will share a few slides very quickly to help me. Sorry, go back.
Yes, we can see it, no problem.
You can see it. Okay, thank you. So I was saying that when we started, we wanted to really put the local community at the center of tourism. We wanted to address patronage, address the exclusion, address the definitions of community, address the terminologies that were used. I think one of us earlier on, I think Scepter, mentioned that the narrative should change about communities being beneficiaries. Why beneficiaries? Yeah. Why not owners? Why not investors? Yeah. Why not partners? Why beneficiaries? That narrative persists in a lot of dialogue and discourse around community-driven or community-based tourism. And academics are not helping us in this space because they continue talking about the same thing, and everybody thinks that community should earn benefits and investors should get profits. That's a narrative for another day. So, what are some of the defining attributes of Africa travel? What we know about Africa travel? Africa's travel is defined by the type of traveler. The type of traveler must travel from somewhere on a flight and land and be picked and be transported and be stayed in a certain type of accommodation and eat a certain type of food and be addressed in a certain way. That traveler is foreign most of the time. It's changing now. We're beginning to see new attributes of travel in terms of the traveler, the type of traveler. But the traditional traveler is that one who dresses in a particular way, who comes to some Masai Mara in a khaki wear, in a heart-written safari, wearing some type of boots and a kind of, that is the traveler. That is what the traveler is defined, traditional definitions of a traveler. And they must travel in a jeep, or they must travel be moved around in a jeep and in a certain particular way. And their guide or host must be dressed in a particular way. Yeah, before 2008, before we started redefining travel and tourism in Masai Mara, your guide was either in a white cotton shirt and khaki pants and safari boots and a hat. But today, I am so happy that more than 15 years later, your guide is dressed in traditional Masai attire. And we had to force this revolution. We had to say that if you love to see Masai pictures, right, in their traditional attires, they can drive jeeps in that attire as well. And people who wear that attire can drive jeeps. They're just not for attraction, just not to be seen in that attire. So the traditional definition of a traveler is what I have just described. So another attribute, traditional attribute of Africa travel, was also in the product and the experience that is offered. And that is why we sell the typical safari package in Kenya, for example, much of East Africa, or we sell the typical coast package, 3 nights, 4 days, 7 nights, 6 7. Who came up with these things? Why can't people just travel and stay for the number of nights that they have? And then when they ask the questions, we give them the cost. Who came up with the idea of packaging for 3 nights, 4 days, or 6 nights, 7 days, or 14 days, and 21 days? Why do we box travel like this? I don't think that travel in the rest of the world is much of the world is packaged. The traveler has the freedom to package how they want to travel, to make inquiries and then package their travel. What has this kind of packaging done to much of Africa is that the tourism spend in destination has been controlled by packages, because packages tell you where to go and how many to stay, how many nights to stay. And so the tourism spend is controlled by packaging. The tourist has no free will to decide what they want, because we are pushing and shoving for certain products and experience that are packaged in a particular way. The product itself, what was defined as a product, was also controlled, was a narrative that is not been from the continent or from Kenya or from Masai Mara, let me speak for Masai Mara, the product that was pushed in Masai Mara was the migration and the big five. Yeah, the cultures of the people became secondary and cheap, and the wildlife became expensive. Yeah, so to see the wildlife, to see wildlife, you pay up to $100 a day per person. To experience culture, you bargain and pay $10 a day. How did that even happen? That we have products and experiences offers that are so unequal that makes the local people's experiences much, much cheaper, whose narrative was, but this narrative has prevailed for a long time. I have described the packaging and the consumption patterns that have been controlled by a certain narrative. Until now, this is beginning to change. Another attribute that defines Africa travel is the revenue sharing model. And I have used the word revenue. The traditional word that is used is benefit sharing. Benefit sharing to include, to make sure that the communities get something out of it. When it comes to communities, nobody talks about revenue sharing models. They talk about benefit sharing models with communities, so that communities will get a percentage of something of what the tourist has spent, but doesn't get a larger share of that. We'll come to looking at revenue sharing models, then we'll understand that a little bit better. Then it's also defined, Africa travel is also defined by the asset ownership and access. Who owns the assets? Who owns the airlines? Who owns the hotels? Who owns the transport system? Who has access to them? There is an imbalance when it comes to this, and you find that most of the time, asset ownership is not in the hands of the local people. It's not in the hands, not even the community, just the nationals of the countries where tourism is happening. The percentage of ownership of assets is very low. How did this happen? Is it our own policies, foreign direct investment policies, that has affected this? What happened so that we got ourselves into this situation where even it's before I started working in the Mara, there was no community that owned a conservation area. Community land was called community land, and it was traversed for free. There was wildlife on it. It was traversed for free. But there was an area that had been protected during the colonial administration, now in the hands of the government, which you will not traverse for free. You had to pay to go into the national park. But wildlife on community land was for free. So even asset ownership and how it was used and accessed and the value that is brought, and that's why I said from the beginning that the tourism model, the Africa travel model, was an exclusive model designed not to benefit and include communities, because how their land and property was valued was very different. There's a lion in community land, you see it for free. There's a lion in a national park, you pay to go and see it. And so we had to fight for community organization so that their lands could be recognized as community conserved areas, that they could live in it, but they could still receive recognition of these spaces as community conserved areas, so that they could begin to have value and get value from wildlife living on their land, and not just be people bearing with wildlife on their land. Then we talk about the pricing and the currency. And this has been one area that for many centuries has excluded Africans from traveling in Africa. For a long time, pricing of products and experiences in Africa were in foreign currency. So I am a Kenyan. I want to go and visit the park. For many decades, the pricing was foreign. It was in US dollars. This still persists. There are places, hotels that still just put their currencies, their rates in US dollars. How can a nation that has its own currency price its products using a foreign currency? It tells you something about the status of that segment, of that sector, and how it perceives travel and tourism, that this is not a product for local people. And so we will price it using foreign currency. And only now in the last maybe decade, you have a lot of pricing that is done in foreign currency and local currency. And that for that reason, many Africans felt like Africans' tourism was not for them. And in those days, particularly, where there were travel offices in the high streets and they had their prices on the windows of their offices, and you're walking. When I was going to university, I walked through a main street in Nairobi, Kenyatta Avenue, with travel companies, and the prices were on the windows of their offices in US dollars. How would I even walk in there? It was automatic. It was telling me, this is not for you. This product is not for you. It is not designed for your consumption. So these are the traditional defining attributes of travel. Not to talk about the narrative. I already talked about the narrative and how it's all been promoted and without being prejudiced in any way. My own travel tourism board, for many years, there were no African faces on their advertisements. They came to change much later and started promoting tourism with African families, with African faces, with Kenyan faces. But the narrative was exclusive. I'm now talking Kenyan faces, but what about the communities? The only time we used the community, it was a Maasai, because the culture was attractive. The culture was attractive. I'm not sure that the people were attractive for tourism, but their culture was attractive for tourism. So this and many other things that I may not find time to mention define Africa travel. And so how did it look like? I'm going to highlight, I'm just going to highlight something on asset ownership. I'm going to highlight
I'm sorry,
on
madam, if
sharing.
you don't, madam, please, would you please start to round up because we are going over time. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to round up very quickly because I have done a lot of explanation already. So who are the asset owners? This actually is an hierarchical order. It is the state owns much of the assets that support tourism in terms of national parks. Then we've got private international investors. Then we've got private local investors and a very small percentage. If the revenue spend that stays in destinations is anything to go by in describing this order, then the communities here, in terms of asset ownership, before meaningful tourism, would actually be less than 1%. 1% of ownership. When it comes to revenue sharing, we all know from statistics that states in Africa earn up to 8% of the revenue in terms of taxes. Private international investors, including airlines, earn between 20 and 50% of tourism spend. Private local investors earn between 0 and 5%, and communities are at 0 point something percent. So what is the narrative change that we are looking at? We're looking at a narrative change today so that we can have meaningful, responsible tourism. Our communities are not beneficiaries. We want them to become investors. Our communities don't earn benefits, they must earn revenue. Our communities don't just get benefits, they must be open opportunities for them as well. We want to go beyond having investors to having partners with communities. We want partners to not, investors to not just be profit generation, but also be about value creation that transforms destinations, that contributes to well-being in people of destinations. And we want to move from a situation where our communities are observers to becoming owners. And that is what we did with community conservancy models in Masai Mara. They are owners of community conserved areas. They have opportunities beyond employment to become suppliers. They have opportunity to have shares in the tourism investments. They have opportunities to invest themselves. They have the opportunity to issue licenses to tourism investors. they can now count their benefits in terms of revenue. And we can tell for sure how much revenue is generated per household from community conserved areas. It's no longer about generalized benefits. And we have many emerging investors. They're now becoming transport owners. They're providing tourist jeeps, the jeeps for tourism, transfer of tourists from one place to another. So what am I saying? It is possible if we are intentional, if governments are intentional, if all stakeholders are intentional, that tourism can move from the traditional narrative and what has defined tourism in the continent to more meaningful tourism that brings value to the communities in destinations. And our communities are not supposed to be observers and attractions. They are active partakers. They have capacity. The capacity can be built. They can manage. They can own. They are not just supposed to benefit. They can manage and they can own. And they can grow from being small communities and also become global brands. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak to you this afternoon.
Wow, 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 wow. Thank you so much, Judy. I said it. You see, I think we have to find another opportunity for Judy to come and share with us. And I took quite a number of things from you. And I think I've seen a number of lecturers, tourism professors who are on call. And I think you've given quite good research topic, academic research topics for professors to start delving into them. And students have also read on our chat message chat box that we have some students who have also joined us. I think you've given quite a number of areas that they can research into travel and tourism in Africa. And I have noted a number of things. I know many of you would ask questions when we are done. We will have opportunity for you to ask specific questions. So thank you once again, Judy, for sharing this insightful information with us. So on the next of speakers, we have Nana Otuo Echampon. Nana Otuo Echampon is actually the former executive director of National Commission on Culture in Ghana. Their mandate is to make sure that we don't destroy our culture as we invite people to come enjoy our cultural heritage in Ghana. We make sure that we don't dilute it, we don't destroy it. We have seen our culture being diluted in a number of ways. The way we wear our African clothes, the way we speak, the way we dance, the way we do things, even our music is gradually changing. Nana was the former executive director of National Commission on Culture. He is also a chief, a community chief in Kumawu traditional area. So Nana has a jurisdiction where he makes sure that people are okay and tourism is sustainable. So he's looking at preservation and authenticity of our culture and how we can use meaningful tourism to preserve our cultural heritage. So Nana Otuo Owahen Echampon, if you can hear me, Nana, please go ahead and share your thoughts with us.
Thank you very much, and then good day to everybody, wherever you find yourself. I believe everybody can hear me.
Yes,
yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Great. As I've been introduced, Nana Owahene Echampon, a traditional ruler for that matter. I'm a chief in a community. My jurisdiction is to ensure there's development, harmony, and peace in society. That's my role. So my traditional stool name is Nkabom. Nkabom means unity, is a local language in Ghana. And then a former executive director of the National Commission on Culture. National Commission on Culture of Ghana has the mandate to manage the cultural life of Ghanaians from a holistic point of view. So I've spearheaded this organization for a number of years now, and I just last March handed over to my successor, a new person, as well as being for the last 25 years, being in the culture and heritage space. I've done a lot of work in terms of UNESCO conventions in relation to intangible cultural heritage. And I've done a lot of consulting for them and piloted a lot of projects with them. And then we have the Ghana Culture Forum, which brings together a civil society organization that brings together the entirety of the creative industry, the creative and heritage cultural space in Ghana. And I'm the chairperson now. And then other stuff that I do, but my whole life has been in the culture, heritage, and then tourism space. But my background officially, first degree in fine arts. I train as an artist, but I've moved on to do other things in marketing of our culture and then cultural administration and so on and so forth. I think that I have a maximum of 10 minutes to do this. And I believe that opportunity will come again in future to develop and then build on this conversation, and then we can interact more. So I'm looking at cultural preservation and authenticity. So by way of introduction, I would say that cultural preservation and authenticity has two essential pillars of meaningful tourism that contributes to sustainable development in Africa. So our food, clothing, language, and everything about us will speak and contribute to the tourism space that we have, and for that matter, meaningful tourism, which has been the bedrock for which we're building upon and then speaking within that space. So why cultural preservation matters? Why cultural preservation matters? Culture preservation, and for that matter, we can refer to as safeguarding the rich heritage, traditions, language, and practices that define a community or a nation, and for that matter, a people. So our traditions, our rich heritage, our language, clothing, practices will give us identity as a people that would distinct us from one community to the other, would distinct us from one nation to the other, or distinct us as a people from the. It is these elements, these values, these traditions, these practices that distinct us as a people from another group of people, from country to country. Therefore, it is very critical that we preserve this culture that distinct us and make us different from one another. And for that matter, Africa is of an incredible diversity of cultures, histories, and customs that have been handed down through generations. So the distinctions, but in all that, there's unity. As we would say that unity in diversity. So we pick a particular country. Within the country, various regions or provinces or districts, you may find different groups of people with different cultures, similar to each other, but as much as they are different, there's unity in this diversity. And these are things that we need to sustain and push so that the unity becomes the lead that will bind these diversity of cultures together. Now, preserving these cultural assets is critical and crucial in this whole business of meaningful tourism because they form the identity of our communities and contribute to a sense of pride and belonging. So without preserving these cultural assets, where do we have this identity? Where do we form the identities of these communities? So it is very essential and critical for us to preserve our cultural assets in our various localities, various cultural tourism sites or destinations as they form the identity of our communities, the community's identity, and contribute to a sense of pride and belongingness. So within the community, it is these cultural aspects that gives us that belongingness. However, this cultural heritage also attracts tourists who seek authentic experiences, which, if managed well, can generate significant economic benefit for us. So what am I saying? Preserving this cultural heritage, cultural assets, to give us identity as community or as a people, and then give us a sense of pride and belongingness. Tourists who are coming to enjoy seek authentic experiences. So we need to preserve them in order for them to become authentic, which invariably will help us generate that economic benefit we ultimately seek and look for. But in so doing, if you don't take care, we risk the cultural erosions, the dilutions and all that. Contracting heritage we're talking about, and that is over commercialization, is a very key issue in dealing with this whole meaningful tourism. Over commercialization. For instance, we may risk turning cultural practices into mere entertainment, therefore stripping them of their meaning and then significant if they become normal, mere entertainment just because of the commercial values or gains it brings to us. So we need to be mindful that we preserve this culture and maintain its authenticity for repeated purchase, for tourists to go back and then yearn to have more of such experiences, that they will go and sell these destinations to their colleagues, to their loved ones, and so forth, so that they don't become mere entertainment, stripping us of the meaning and the significance. When traditions are commodified, some aspect may definitely be exaggerated, diluted, or distorted, leading to loss of authenticity. So we need to be mindful of that too, that when traditions are commodified, some aspects, whether we like it or not, will be exaggerated, diluted, or distorted, leading to the loss of authenticity. In talking about environmental degradation and urban development, it can also threaten our historic sites and living cultures, especially when conservation efforts are driven solely by economic motives without community involvement. Community involvement becomes critical, the litmus paper, and the central point in this whole meaningful tourism as I understand it. So therefore, we need to be mindful of the environmental degradation and then the urban development as a threat to our various historic sites in various communities and locations, and as well as the living cultures that we have in these locations and sites, so that when conservation efforts are not intentionalized, taken care of, we may have only the economic motive without the community involvement. So therefore, it is important that city authorities and traditional authorities must work closely together, because the chiefs, our traditional revered chiefs, owners of the land, and then owners of our and the custodians of our culture, must work with the city authorities. So the city authorities should not always, for commercial gains for political expediency and so on and so forth. Just drive these tourist sites, promote them without working closely with traditional authorities who are, as it were, the custodians of our culture. So there should be that harmony, that synergy to ensure that whilst we're looking for commercial value and gains, we ensure the preservation and its authenticity. So what are the power of authenticity in this whole discussion and dialogue? We're looking at authenticity as that signifies genuineness. Authenticity signifies genuineness. Experiences or products that are true to their origin and reflect the true essence of a community's culture or a community spirit or the community soul. So we're saying that authenticity signifies genuineness. And that authenticity is the experiences or the products that are true to their origin and reflect the true essence of the community's culture. So my emphasis has been on community, community, community. The true essence of community's culture, the community spirit, and the community soul that will bring the authenticity as we seek to preserve the culture of a particular location or of our people. So therefore, tourists today increasingly crave for genuine interactions, seeking to understand the real, unfiltered ways of life of the community and their cultural heritage, be it a tangible cultural heritage or intangible cultural heritage, whichever way, and then must be sustained and preserved without dilution. Authentic cultural tourism also involves community participation. Community participation, and the emphasis and emphasizing respect, celebration, and showcasing local traditions, the arts, which are the expressions of our culture. That is our craft, our music, dance, narratives, without distortions. It is very, very critical, without distortions. So, authentic cultural tourism should involve community participation, very critical. Therefore, the community, there's ownership. When there's ownership and they are involved, they take hold of it, they guide it, safeguard it, and make sure that nothing is diluted, distorted, that the originality and authentic message or culture is being shared with tourists across. How do we preserve this cultural presentation and authenticity? We must be intentional. So to promote these, communities and stakeholders must prioritize local voices and traditional knowledge in promoting our cultural preservation and authenticity. So tangible and intangible cultural heritage is to be preserved and safeguarded for generations unborn, for unique, authentic lifestyle experiences by patrons of tourism, and for that matter, particularly tourist locations, community, or sites to be established and known for its conscious preservation and its authenticity. We must support the local artisans and maintain whatever they do, their authentic performances, and ensuring that the cultural sites are managed with respect and proper conservation techniques, which are very vital and crucial to the sustenance of our various community sites, locations that will bring meaningful tourism to our numerous patrons all over the world, especially within Africa. A key point is also for education. That plays a key role both for the tourists who should respect local customs and for communities which need support to protect their heritage. By so doing, developing responsible tourism policies and collaborating with local communities or local authorities who can help balance development with preservation. And the key word statement here is that local authorities with traditional authorities and the community, balancing development with preservation, and one not overriding the other, balancing development with preservation. By so doing, we'll be able to preserve our culture and the spaces we have to give that authentic experience to our customers and the people who come for it. In conclusion, because of our time, a cultural preservation and authenticity are not just about protecting the past. No, it is not just about protecting the past. They are about maintaining the unique identities of African communities whilst creating meaningful, responsible tourism that benefits both visitors and the locals or the community folks as well. Maintaining the unique identities of African communities whilst creating meaningful, responsible tourism that benefit both local and visitors. A sustainable approach to tourism, it recognizes the importance of local voices, supports traditional livelihoods, and ensure that cultural assets remain vibrant for generations to come. So these will be my few initial talks that I believe that in future you get another platform to expand this, that our localities should be a central point and an indicating factor for us as we play the state actors and then the local actors as well to combine in order to balance the meaningful experiences, becoming responsible and benefiting both local and visitors alike. I thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nana. We are so grateful. I think we have to do part 2 of this conversation. Thank you so much. But the next person that will be speaking is a former tourism minister. And the whole of yesterday, she was on campaign trail. And this morning, she's still there, but she decided to still join us to share some. That's because she sees this as an important subject, tourism and cultural affairs of Sierra Leone. She will be talking about youth and women in meaningful tourism, how we can involve youth and women in meaningful tourism to make the offering of tourism in Africa authentic. We have here with us Honorable Professor Memuna Pratt. Honorable, if you are here and you can hear me, please. I know your background is quite noisy, but manage it for us. Deliver your speech. So thank you, and the floor is yours. Thank you.
Hello, good morning to all of you. Good morning. Hello.
Good morning. Good morning.
Hello,
Yes,
good morning.
so,
Hello, we can hear you.
yes, I'm really speaking from a position which has got some noise because, as I've said to you, we have some party events today and there are so many people around. But because of my passion and everything for tourism, I thought I could squeeze in some time so that I can participate because I'd really planned to really give my time and thoughts to this particular meeting. Now, I will start by saying that the lifeblood of any nation for development, I think one of the vehicles is effective and efficient management of cultural and heritage resources in tourism. Today in Africa and the rest of the world, we are faced with a youth problem, youth unemployment, youth bulge, the question of rural urban migration, skills problem, lack of entrepreneurship development, and then also lack of support in terms of creating opportunities for young people. So we have tried many, many different things. We've tried many development trajectories directly in looking at some of this. But what we need to do is to see how tourism can be a vector to be able to drive this development, especially in creating the jobs and looking at the issues of youth. So there are many opportunities we have today. And what we need to do is to ensure that we use this vehicle as an integrated strategy for development. I remember the 5 or 6 years as Minister of Tourism, I inherited a ministry that was completely very, very traditional. So what I did was that to develop an integrated development strategy, which means I try to mainstream tourism to all of government activities. And I managed to see how can I develop an integrated strategy that links to youth ministry, women, health, and all of those, agriculture, so that we can be able to see how that collaboration and coordination can be able to respond to some of the critical issues facing us. So youth and women, if we want to talk about how do we deal with their limited capabilities and trying to see how we can be able to ensure that we provide for that and develop a good response and development mechanism, we have to create activities within the youth and tourism sector. Now, what did we in Sierra Leone? The first thing I did was that we did a survey. A national survey was done to look at what is the capacity gap in the hospitality industry and the tourism sector. What is the capacity gap in the industry? Shut up. What is the capacity gap in the industry? In order that we can ensure that through this survey, we are going to collect data. So once we collect this data system and we are able to put together, so we had a fair idea of what is the percentage of formal jobs in the tourism and hospitality industry, and what is the capacity of young people that are not in the mainstream formal institution, in order that we can ensure that we make provision for them. So we took a leap in terms of the women in tourism. We focused on innovation and entrepreneurship. And through that, we are able to create networks. We are able to solicit funds from the World Bank. We gave them training. We gave them startup kits in all our different areas, especially in the tourism response areas, like the beaches, some of our tourism sites, some of our cultural sites, in order that we can build their capacity, and then they are able to ensure that the support entrepreneurship needs of those particular sites and destinations. And then for the young people, of course, we focus on the entertainment industry. And through the entertainment industry, we are able to provide training. Because for the entertainment industry, there's a skills gap. Because a lot of people who go to the entertainment industry are very many people who may not even have had formal education or may not even have had passed their WASC or BECE. So that's like a ground which is easy for them. So what we did was that we tried to provide training for them and capacity building for them. So we try to ensure that we give them skills as to how they can be able to monetize, what they are doing. We brought them in terms of developing digital platforms, train them in all of that. But notwithstanding, we were able to bring a lot of young people to see the need for them to believe that they have a space and they have something they can do, and then the attention is given to them. So I will say that in terms of responding to the problems which we are having generally in Africa and maybe some parts of Asia, is that the level of unemployment, the lack of skills, the skills gap, the entrepreneurship, which we think now is going to be one of the hubs, I think should be an area which we should really focus on, and to see how that can be harnessed within the tourism response program. Finally, I will talk about the COVID. When we had the COVID, we had an opportunity to be able to feel the problem. because of the closures, because flights were not coming, activities were not being held, you know. So we focus on them, and we are able to do quite a lot of domestic-led initiatives of giving them COVID relief funds and then channeling them to be able to use those COVID relief funds in terms of promoting the industry. So I think that's really the way to go for us. We have to be innovative, we have to be creative, and then we also have to look beyond, and we have to look out of our normal comfort zone. I think gone are those days when we just think that tourism hospitality is really about accommodation facilities and all of that. But I think nowadays we have to go around and look at youth development, women development, and to say that it's not only in the mainstream development programs, but tourism can be a very, very good space which you can be able to respond to some of this. It will increase the jobs. And then by doing that, the tourism capacity, the size, the destinations will develop because jobs will be there. So I think for me, that's the way I will look at it. So government needs to take the bull by the horn and no longer relegate tourism somewhere, because tourism is one of the least supported in many African countries, that they can see tourism as a core area in terms of responding to the needs of citizens and then also to the needs of government. So I think that's what I would say. As I say, I'm in the midst of so many people, and but I thought I should be able to bring in my own perspective a little in order that we can enhance this conversation. Thank you all for listening.
So much, Mama Pratt. Thank you so much. We are so grateful for making time to share with us. I know what you are also doing in terms of tourism and peace. I know at an appropriate time you get opportunity to share with us the new project that you've taken up in terms of tourism and peace in Africa. So thank you so much. We are grateful to you. The next speaker is...
I think, sorry, one moment. Definitely, that should be the biggest focus now because of really what is happening in the world. We've seen the manner in which tourism has actually got the negative in many of those countries, which we then expected. We are the countries that should be able to lead us. So we have an opportunity now to make gains in terms of ensuring that we present tourism as it is.
Absolutely, okay? Absolutely. I totally agree with you on that. Thank you so much. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. So we have Ola Wright. Ola is the CEO of West Africa Ecotourism Network and also a coordinator for West Africa Tourism Organization. She will be looking at ecotourism and environmental responsibility, how we can blend it with meaningful tourism, because without meaningful tourism, ecotourism and environmental responsibility doesn't come anywhere. So Ola Wright, if you are here and you can hear me, Ola is based in both Nigeria and in the UK. So if you can hear me, please share with us your thought within 10 minutes, please. We are gradually getting out of control in terms of time, but I know Ola can do that within 8 to 10 minutes. So Ola, if you can hear me.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Thanks to Emmanuel, to Professor Wolfgang and the team for putting this, wonderful webinar together. It's always good to have, like-minded people to come together around the table, share experiences, share insights, also for the development of tourism, of our passion. I am a bit of a talker, and there's a limited time, so we have to keep this, really limited. Now, I want to basically keep it simple. I think it's always the best approach. Oftentimes we get, things, we get lots of different definitions, areas, etc., and it can become a bit, cumbersome. So let me just share this. Because of the time restriction, I will not be, sharing a major presentation. However, I would like to still, give us something, in here. And WATO is a region, basically, we're a regional tourism board, for West and Central Africa. We cover 19 countries. I know some of you say, West Africa, how many countries does West Africa has? Now, West Africa has 18 countries. You may have probably known otherwise. Some people would tell you 15, 16. Some would say 17. Check your records. You can go on our website to get, the facts. And we also have Cameroon, which technically is Central Africa, but is one of our members. And I think that Cameroon also borders West and Central Africa. So that is how we have 19 currently. There were about 2 or 3 going through the process of joining from Central Africa. So we basically cover West and Central Africa. Now, as Emmanuel mentioned, we not so long ago launched a network, which is the West Africa Ecotourism Network. And that is to do with ecotourism. There's the ecotourism, sustainable tourism, and really meaningful tourism. And it was paramount that we launched the network, as from our studies, from our researches and everything. We realized that one area that West Africa, West and Central, and when I say West Africa, just know that it covers Central Africa as well. One area that we can really compete, is nature, culture, sustainable tourism, ecotourism. I'll give you, more, definition and more insights into how we, see ecotourism. Then we found out that there are lots of people practicing ecotourism and operating in the space of ecotourism, having NGOs and all that. However, no one knows what anyone is doing within the region. And even international organizations too were a bit confused. They lacked knowledge and all that stuff. So we decided to have a network where we can put in people together from across the region and start having meaningful conversations. Now, that is a bit about what we do with it, with the network, and just to give you, I know most of us here are professionals and all, and just to give you more into what because you will see a lot of definitions as well. We decided to stick to these definitions by WINE. And when we say WINE, it's West Africa Ecotourism Network, as I introduced earlier. So it is WINE defines ecotourism as environmentally, socially, and culturally responsible travel to nature, to natural areas. So it's actually on my screen, so I'm reading from the screen as well. To natural areas that contributes to conserving ecosystems and educating visitors and communities about their importance. We will get a little bit about the importance. I'm paraphrasing a lot here, to actually keep the time. Ecotourism sustains well-being of local people and providing livelihood opportunities compatible with conservation efforts, and involves both visitors and resident populations in the protected, in the protection of unique yet fragile biodiversities. Biodiversity is very fragile. We have heard from a lot of people, and a lot of them, make a lot of sense. And I'm sitting there thinking, this is why, forums like this are important, so that you can get to know some of the people you don't know. Ghana is one of my countries. I've been to Ghana. As a matter of fact, WINE was actually launched in Ghana, but I don't think I've ever met, the Nana that spoke earlier. So forums like this are very important. Now, as I said, I would not, well, in order to keep to time, I'll just paraphrase, some things. Now when we talk about ecotourism and sustainable travel, that involves conservation, it involves community, and it involves education. So I'm going to break it down into those three points. Sorry, I want to actually try and I'm seeing some things on my screen where I'm not sure whether that was from Emmanuel or whether that is from my screen, but I think it's okay now. I've given you a definition how we, define ecotourism, and it's very, similar to a lot of the definitions that you'll see, online. The important thing is that we understand ecotourism, what it's about, and that it is about conservation, number one. It's about communities. Number two, it's about education. And when those things combine, it works. It really works. And I'll show you, briefly as well how it works. For conservation, this means seeking out long term. And this is why and because I was trying to say, okay, really, how is meaningful tourism different from sustainable tourism? And a lot of people, can also practice meaningful tourism and do things in a meaningful way. But if it is not sustainable, then it's not sustainable. So that is how I see that. So basically, seeking long-term market-linked solutions that protect natural and cultural heritage and enhance biodiversity. I will give a quick example in a little bit. For communities, it's about providing employment, livelihood, opportunities, and building capacity for communities to achieve sustainable development. Now, for education is, for both visitors and the community as well. So there is emphasis on improving awareness. There's a huge need for awareness and appreciation for nature, education that is inclusive both for for staff of projects, for visitors, and for the community at large. Now, I guess for everyone, the conservation bit is basically straightforward. I'm going to be using experience, and I like to talk out of experience, out of what we really know, and not just out of a textbook or theory, etc. We have a few projects, and as I said earlier, we realized that what West Africa is really strong in, we have we have the most beautiful beaches in the world. Trust me, take my words on this. Anything I say, okay, probably don't take my word for it, just check. You can do your own research. The former minister from Sierra Leone just spoke. Sierra Leone in particular has have the most beautiful beaches, pristine, and that goes across the region. But we realize that there are some destinations that are very strong in beach tourism. We don't really want to go and start competing with those destinations because they've been well known for a long time. But one area or some areas that we're very strong in is cultural, tourism, is heritage tourism, it's wildlife, it's nature. You can, and I have not, and trust me, I have traveled to a lot of countries, in a lot of destinations. I have not seen nature, culture like you see, in Africa generally, and West Africa being the capital of that. I know that my brother Sept is on this line. He may want to say, he may probably want to argue with me in terms of the, cultural capital, of the continent. Now, with the communities, Judy gave a very powerful, presentation, and she spoke a lot about that. I don't want to reinvent the wheel or, talk about how important it is to really, fight for the community. One of the things that we do from WATO, and YN, the network, is that we don't even like to use the term community-based, because community-based can be, oh, you just involve the community. We use the term community-driven or community-led. So the projects that we do involving the community, we let the community in right from the beginning. in fact, most of them, the communities actually come to us and we help them and work with them to develop those projects. One of it is that I want to use as an example is in a place called Badagry in Lagos State of Nigeria. Now, we've talked about how people fight for communities. Okay.
Hello, Ola. Can you be
Yes.
winding up for us, please? We are
Yes, I
behind
am,
time,
and
please.
that
We
is why I'm
still have
giving the
one more.
example. Yes, I'm giving the example, Sam,
Right,
winding
thank
down
you.
to actually give us and let us know what exactly goes on, how people how it is, and really how easy is it with to work with rural communities. I can tell you, and I'm sure that a lot of people that work with, rural communities will say the same thing. It is not easy. So we go with an idea, we have an idea and how development should work. These people always have a different idea as well. So working with rural communities is not always the easiest, and especially when you're coming as an investor. And I'm not talking about coming, as an international investor this time, but also, so to say, from almost the same community. But their mentality is very different. They'll rather you give them, $10,000 than actually developing, something that will give them, $100 trillion, in the future, and that is sustainable. So this is part of, the obstacle that we face. So when we're talking about, community-led and fighting for community, we also need to realize what the challenges are. And these are the things that, really hinders development. We have a project, in this area where that project is halted because we face so much, obstacles with the actual community themselves. We try to educate them, and this is where education, comes in. So that is actually the third pillar I'm pointing at. So educating. So not just educating your staff, not just educating visitors that come in. Judy mentioned about that. I don't really want to touch um on that, but it is very important to also educate the local people, because that is where you will first find your initial challenge. So you cannot even develop your tourism or have a sustainable, tourism if the local community does not, work together with you, and if they don't see beyond the daily means that they can get right now, instead of working with you, to have something sustainable for the future. The other education that I want to talk about is, education within the, tourism, travel and tourism industry itself. I know that Judy mentioned, I'm not sure, I think maybe Nana may have touched on that as well, about like having, foreign investments. Sometimes foreign investors come in and they want you to do things the way that they want. And most of the time they have an umbrella approach. And that will not work in Africa. I can tell you that I have experienced it a lot of times. We have had to say no to some sponsors, not that we don't need the money, not that we're not desperate for the money. We were. However, they wanted us to do things in a specific way, that they know of in theory and, can never, work, well in practice. And we've had to say no. It was very painful because we needed the money. However, we cannot take the money and they dictate to us, how to run things because they are not there. They are not the locals. So these are the challenges. So we need to educate everyone. And one of the major things that they also do.
Hello, Ola. Please, we have to here. It's unfortunate. I'm sorry. We have
Okay, yeah,
to,
so that's fine.
so we still have one more.
Okay, yeah, no, that's fine. So basically you have the three, major, points. So I'm just gonna recap, which is conservation. We need to conserve the nature and our cultural heritage. Nana mentioned that also earlier. We need to, empower the communities and we need to educate. And education, is for everyone, not just the local community, not just visitors, also yourself and the government as well, and everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I'm so sorry we have to literally push you a little. So forgive me. And participants, we are also sorry that we've taken a bit of your time. I know you bear with us. We are left with one more speaker, and I've also seen quite a number of questions. So we will address all of them. In a very short while, I promise you, in a very short while, we will address all of them so that we can depart within time. So, Dr. Abigail Olabayi, if you are here, Dr. Abigail is the CEO of this, the Seagull Tourism Development Facility Management Company Limited in Nigeria, and also a tourism ambassador. If you are here, please, within 10 minutes, if you can do it 7 minutes, we will really appreciate it, but please stay within time and share with us if you are here.
Thank you. Yes, I am. Good morning, good day to everyone. Am I audible, please?
Yes, you are. Yes.
Okay, awesome. My name is Abigail Olabaye. I'm the president of Sayari Dunia Sustainable Tourism Foundation, and as Emmanuel said, I'm also the CEO for the Seagull Tourism Development and Facilities Management Company, where we offer services in sustainable tourism development and, of course, sustainable facilities management as well. And basically, one of the reasons why we set up shop is because we identified major gaps when it comes to tourism facilities in the area of maintenance, especially in the area of facilities management, and of course tourism development. Most destinations in Africa are lacking behind in terms of infrastructural development, in terms of planning, sound planning, training of staff, and the like. So this is where we operate as a company. Coming to our non-profit, Sayari Dunia Sustainable Tourism Foundation, you might be wondering what Sayari Dunia means. That is the Swahili word for planet Earth, and that is because our foundation, we're basically into climate action and sustainable tourism. And it will interest you to know that in 2023, we had a conference, we had a continental conference, which we named the Africa Tourism Climate Action Forum at CAF. And we had some interesting outcomes from this conference, which I'll briefly mention before I go into technology, innovation, and digital tourism for Africa's sustainable development. Because as we're talking about tourism development, we must also not lose sight of digital skills, because we can't have tourism development without technology. So at this conference, we had 20 major recommendations, but I would highlight about 5 thereabout. The first one is parties to the Paris Agreement to include tourism in the tourism and its net zero transition in their nationally determined contribution. Now, we came up with this outcome because we identified the fact that most countries, of course, the United Nations framework for climate conference, and the requirements to countries to develop a nationally determined contribution, where it comes to achieving the Paris Agreement and meeting the targets and all what have you. Now, we noticed, or we observed, that tourism wasn't factored into most nationally determined contribution from countries. So we put that on the table, and we discussed that at the conference, that tourism must be identified as a sector, not only a sector that contributes to climate change, but also that suffers from the impacts of climate change. So we said that tourism as a sector must be included solutions to that must be included in the country's nationally determined contribution. And I'm emphasizing that in this meeting, as one of those outcomes, from that conference. Of course, we also looked at decarbonization of tourism operations, because when we're talking about meaningful tourism, and we're talking about impacts of climate action, I know that climate change is part of the areas that meaningful tourism, covers. So that's why I am going this route. And of course, decarbonization of tourism operations was also one area that we focused on, which of course, all stakeholders agreed that tourism operations, African economies must begin to look at how tourism operations would be decarbonized, of course, measurement and begin to see how, because once you're able to measure the carbon emissions, then you're able to plan how it can be reduced and totally mitigated. So tourism operations must be decarbonized. Of course, waste management programs, recycle programs must be put to practice by accommodation, facilities, and generally across the value chain. And of course, when we talk about waste management, training of guests as well, training of guests, training of employees, it must also be part of, the holistic destination development program. Of course, proactive sustainable tourism, destination management and planning, because it actually starts from the planning stage, from conceptualization to the planning and to the actual development, so we have to begin to, determine, who the stakeholders are. I love how the holistic approach that meaningful tourism is bringing, to the fore, where it has identified stakeholders, it has identified, the government, the destinations, the communities, the employees, and all other, stakeholder, in the value chain. So, businesses and African governments must be proactive when it comes to sustainable tourism destination planning and management. Of course, community level inclusion and training and advocacy. We must not leave out the communities. They are very vital. Youth and women inclusion and active participation. So these were the some of the outcomes. We had 20 recommendations from that conference, and you can get more from our website, samsayaridunia.org. I would now go into my presentation for today, which is on technology. So we have talked about tourism, and we've talked about destinations, and we've talked about carbon emissions reduction and decarbonization and what have you. But what is the use of this without technology, and how far can Africa go without digital skills? I would start with is my screen, can you see my screen, please?
Yes, we can.
Okay, awesome. So here we have the evolution of technology, innovation, and digital tourism in Africa. So I'm just going to fly through my slides because of time. Of course, we had the internet and web in the 60s to 90s. This period birthed the internet era and laid the foundation for digital access to tourism products and travel information in Africa. From there, we advanced to, or we transited to the 90s to the 2000s, where we saw the early adoption of digitalization. This saw to Africa embracing digital technologies with the emergence of online booking platforms, website, and this disrupted the traditional booking models. E.g., we had OTAs like the Expedia, Travelocity, and what have you, and these allowed users to book flights, hotels, car rentals, and make travel arrangements online. Of course, after this, we had the era between the 2000s and the 2010 where there was proliferation of mobile phones, mobile internet, which enabled access to digital services and products. And it was during this era that saw to the emergence of social media and online marketing. Social media platforms like Twitter, now X, like Facebook, Instagram, all transformed tourism marketing, and African destinations and businesses utilize these platforms to showcase their attractions and experiences. Then, of course, we had the digital payments of the 2010, such as the mobile money, online digital payment platforms and gateways that facilitated secure and convenient transactions. We also, from here, transited to sharing. Towards the end of that era, the digital payment era, we had a sharing economy that saw to the emergence of travel becoming more local, more flexible, more connected through shared devices like your Uber, your Airbnb. Possibility, facilitating engagement and connections between users and service providers, making it easier to access products and services. Of course, we also transited to the era of your information, and they were able to navigate real-time updates. And of course, we had the virtual reality and augmented reality. And these began to be used to digitally showcase destinations. Now, let's look at the current trends in Africa's digital tourism landscape. We've got increased adoption of these digital technologies, some of which I've mentioned. These are being leveraged by businesses to improve operational efficiency and provide personalized experiences. We've got the data analytics, which is being utilized to inform decision-making, optimize operations, and enhance customer behavior, as well as customer rights. The emergence of new technologies like your artificial intelligence, blockchain, and the Internet of Things are being explored for their potential to transform the tourism industry. These tools enhance trip planning, service delivery, and decision-making. Now, let's look at current trends. Of course, still the current trends, 2020 till present. We're looking at artificial intelligence now and how travelers are using AI. 22% of travelers use AI to stay within budget. 23% use AI to make quick adjustments to the plans. 40% of global travelers use the tool to find new destinations. 58% use it to save time during planning, and 70% use this to discover attractions and activities. Let's look at an overview of innovation in Africa. I'll look at the top 5 countries. We've got 15 here, but we're gonna just mention the top 5. We've got Mauritius, which the score is 30.6. We've got South Africa with a score of 28.3. We've got Botswana, we've got Cabo Verde, and we've got Senegal at 22.0. Of course, these are countries that are topmost or leading in innovation in Africa. Let's look at the top AI leaders in Africa. You've got South Africa, you've got Nigeria, you've got Kenya, Morocco, and Tunisia. Yeah, I've got 10 here, but I just mentioned 5. I'm almost done. In 2 minutes, I'll be done. Now, let's look at growth opportunities in tourism innovation for Africa. I heard over and over how the youth population in Africa is such a very, very interesting demographic. 42% from the World Economic Forum report and Investors Daily got 42% of global youth, which is projected to be African by 2030. We've got 30% AI skilled workers, the salaries. AI is going to make it possible for the salaries to be increased, because they possess the, such skills. Also, we have $5 billion was raised by African tech startups throughout 2020. So you can imagine the next 5, 10, 20 years, what the stats would be looking like. How can Africa prepare for the future? This is my last 2 slides. How can Africa prepare for the future of technology, innovation, and digital tourism meaningfully? We must invest in digital infrastructure. Most African countries are lagging behind when it comes to broadband access and other digital infrastructure. We must expand broadband access. We must close the access gap by investing in rural and remote areas. Schools, clinics, community centers must increase their internet penetration, access, and usage. We have to also invest in digital ID payment systems and data sharing. We have to foster innovation and entrepreneurship, supporting startups and MSMEs. I love what our ministry is doing in Nigeria, the Ministry of Communication and Innovation, and working with SMEDAN. SMEDAN is an agency for small businesses, small and medium businesses, and there's a collaboration between that ministry, the Ministry of Trade, and the agency. So there must be support for startups and MSMEs because they are the future, and they constitute the economy. When we talk about African economy, growth of these businesses, means growth for Africa's economy. So Africa must strengthen the startups, the micro, small, medium enterprises to drive technology-based innovation and entrepreneurship in tourism. We must encourage entrepreneurship. We must provide low-interest loans because access to finance is another major obstacle that we must surmount as a continent. So we have to look at policies that foster and promote and encourage provision of low-interest access to low-interest loans and business support services that will foster green job creation and innovative solutions. We must also develop digital skills. There are 2 major areas of need here: skills, access to finance. So we must invest in digital literacy programs, coding, data analysis, digital innovation, which will equip young people, which will equip women and other inclusive groups with skills for emerging green sectors. Finally, let us also look at promoting digital tourism. We have to develop smart technologies, strategies for technology innovation, sustainability, accessibility, and inclusivity will enhance the tourist experience. Obviously, from my past slides, we've seen how technology has really significantly aided the growth of tourism in Africa. We must implement smart travel facilitation, consolidating tools for smart visas, borders, security processes, and infrastructure will revolutionize tourism. We must address challenges like closing the digital divide, like I mentioned. We must bridge the gap in digital access in terms of affordability, skills acquisition, knowledge transfer to promote inclusive growth. We must develop supportive policies. African governments and tourism authorities must enact policies that promote green skills acquisition, renewable energy efficiency, and energy transition generally, and other climate solutions that will support green job creation. We must also encourage private sector investment In fact, public-private partnerships, because partnerships really win all the time. So we have to provide clear investment signals and incentives that attract private sector investment in green technologies. I mean, bankable projects, that would attract investments. In Nigeria, we've got corporate organizations like your Access Bank and Sterling Bank that are
Dr.
investing.
Abigail, can you be winding up for us, please? Please.
Yes, I'm finishing up. That are investing heavily in green technologies. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Dr. Abigail. Participants, thank you so much for your time. I know we've gone beyond our time, but it will be totally unfair not to give you 2 opportunities for a question or contribution. So I think we should do that. So I'll take just about 2 questions. Sweeter and the team, if you have any questions, I think there was a question about certification, if they will get certificate of participation. And there was also a question about if the slides will be available. Dr. Reza, if you can address that for us, certification and the availability of slides, if we can have that. Those who presented slides, if I'm sure they can make them available. Can you make them available to participants? And then certificate of participation, if that will be available. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the speakers. It was a wonderful session. Yes, definitely, as I wrote also on the chat box, the recording will be edited and will be available from tomorrow afternoon, sometimes African time, and the biography of all the speakers and the PowerPoints, and it will remain there permanently. So even after years, you always can find it back.
Thank you so much. You are so kind, Dr. Reza. You are so kind. Thank you so much.
And the certificate, I'm sorry, I forget. The certificate, those who have been in the Zoom, not registered, then they can send us an email and they can get the certificate free of charge.
Thank you very much. Getting certificate free of charge. We are so grateful to you. Yeah, so let me take 2 questions. We also have with us a rep from UNDP. We have a rep from WAFA, rep from CETA, and also my good friend Buka from Berlin, Germany. And then my own mother, tourism mother, Antistella Penton, also on call. We are grateful to you. And my colleagues, trainer of trainers, all of you, we are so grateful for you for your participation. Please do take 2 questions or 2 contributions, and then we can wrap up. Have a closing remarks from Professor Wolfgang. 2 questions. If you have any questions, please just to raise your hand, or you can go ahead and speak. Oh, thank God. There are no questions. That's good. All right. Okay, so we don't have any questions. Sorry, somebody speaking? Well, we don't have any questions. So we will.
One comment.
We have. Doctor, I see a hand. Okay, please. Yes, comment. Yeah.
So my name is Burkhard Herbote.
Yes, please go ahead. Yes, your hand is up. Yes.
My name is Burkhard Herbote. I'm from Germany, and I used to be the editor of the Africa Travel and Tourism Directory some years ago. So I had contacts to all government tourism authorities in Africa and a lot of associations and organizations from the private sector. And I only can agree that with it is absolutely necessary to inbound more and more communities in this field, not just to produce jobs and income, but also seeing this from a standpoint from a foreigner. Very often, very often, we hear from Africa's specialists in tourism that the real richdom the real value of Africa is not just the landscape and safaris. It is the people, the African people. And this is the point. We need meeting points. Of course, this can be done everywhere in Africa, also in the capital. But the real fundament of the African societies, which are hundreds, if not thousands, will be the communities. The communities needs to get support by the governments. And we need, as said today, there are a lot of issues to be solved at the same time, more or less. And this organization, there needs to be a national organization for community tourism. This organization need to work with local incoming tour operators who work with foreign outgoing tour operators. The outgoing tour operators will not contact the communities themselves, just a very few maybe. But if they do, they need to be able to communicate. So it depends on good broadband and things like this. And this cannot be happen by pushing a button. So it is a question of time, but also the longest way started with the first step. I suggest everybody here to search for an organization which is headquartered in Jamaica. And it is called Community, where it is here? Country style.
Okay, you can share.
Okay, there is a country style community.
You can share that on the chat box when you find it.
Sorry, I don't got it.
Okay. Yes. So I was saying you can share the name with us when you find it, and then we will make it available to them.
I have done so in the chat room, yeah. And so I urgently, this is a good community to exchange experiences, and so they can learn from each other. This is what I want to say.
Thank you so much. We are so grateful to you for. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So let me also use this opportunity to thank my speakers or our speakers once again. Nana Otuo Echampon Owahen, Judy, thank you so much. Ola Wright, Dr. Abigail, and Dr. Pratt, we are so grateful to you. I have been your moderator and the convener of this summit, and I want to thank Institute of Tourism and then Professor Wolfgang, who will give us the closing remarks. So I thank you all for your time and opportunity to moderate this program. So Professor Wolfgang, please, your closing remarks.
Yes, okay, thank you very much. I will be very, very brief because we are way beyond the time we had already scheduled. But first of all, of course, also from my side, thank you very much to Reza from the Institute of Tourism to organize. Thank you to our chair, Emmanuel, who is also our Meaningful Tourism trainer for Ghana, for organizing this and then bringing all the wonderful speakers. For the speakers themselves, I think we all could learn a lot. And obviously, this can only be the beginning of a process. So we have in this webinar mostly taken stock of what is the situation. And maybe we will have to do another one to say, okay, what is the answer of meaningful tourism to all these issues which have been raised. And of course, again, Reza said correctly, so from tomorrow afternoon, all this will be online and you can see all the information. And you will see also in my slides, there was a link also to the Meaningful Tourism Weekly, which is a magazine we publish for free every week, where you can also find information. And of course, there was also somebody asking how to become a meaningful tourism trainer in the countries we are not yet covering in Africa. And of course, everybody who has some experience with trainings and is passionate about sustainability and tourism, of course, you are invited to contact us and maybe you can be a future trainer of us. So I think from all the presentation, just saying in a nutshell, it is clear that the knowledge is there and lots of African experts are there. They don't need anybody else to tell them what to do. They know the situation very well. They analyze the situation very well. They see also what are the hurdles they have to overcome. And of course, well, the basic level of this is networking, is working together and understanding that you need to have benefits and satisfaction for all the stakeholders. And of course, in Africa, the local communities play a very important role in that, and the environment as well, but of course also everybody else. And so therefore, if you have interest and if you want to continue the discussion, please contact our chair, Emmanuel, and the Africa Tourism Research Network, or contact us, the Meaningful Tourism Center, and will be all sure happy to answer your questions by email or by WhatsApp or whatever. Just to say, unfortunately, we didn't have time to do all the presentation of all our trainers. So our trainer Samuel from Malawi and Biopwa from Zanzibar, we didn't have time for to do this. But of course, there will be another opportunity for that. So with that, thank you very much. Of course, also to all those who were not here in the Zoom call, but who have been looking from Facebook or Instagram or YouTube. So thank you also for spending 2 hours of your life in learning more about tourism in Africa and meaningful tourism in Africa specifically. With that, thanks a lot, and I wish you all, depends on where you are, a good day, a good evening, or a good night. And so all the best, and as we say in Nepal, namaste.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
very
Enjoy the
much.
rest of the day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Emmanuel, for a wonderful moderating.